So what is the future for ethanol? Is it filling up gas tanks in cars or fuel tanks in jets? We'll discuss that this morning. And USDA's NASS is discontinuing some surveys, which has triggered plenty of negative reactions from the ag industry. And it's Iowa State University Extension and Outreach Week. We'll talk about what ISU Extension means to the state.
Live from my own personal hump day via Farm Journal broadcast, this is AgriTalk. This morning we begin with a conversation with Tom Buis from the American Carbon Alliance. Then it's Bernt Nelson from the American Farm Bureau Federation, and later Jason Henderson from Iowa State University. Directly following the news, Greg Henderson from Drovers. I'm handsome newsman Davis Michelson. Now here's the host of AgriTalk, Chip Lowry.
All right, Davis. Yeah, I don't know if we want anything to do with your own personal hump day this
I'm
week.
just saying it's Wednesday for me today, dude.
It's Wednesday for you today? Is that
That's
what you were saying?
That's right. Yeah, I got a 3-day week this week, and here we are right in the middle of it, you know?
Right in the middle of it. Yeah. Yeah, I got you. Yeah, well, for the rest of us, working chumps out here, it's Thursday. And we're darn happy that it's Thursday.
Well, I could see that. Yeah. No. I still got a couple of days to go before I catch up.
So you'll be there by this evening?
I'm not sure how it works.
You don't want to miss out on any of Friday.
I really don't. No. Not a minute of it, actually.
So you better hurry up and get through the rest of the middle of the week, okay?
I'll see what I can do.
Okay. Welcome to AgriTalk. I am Chip. That is Davis.
Yeah.
We've got quite a show coming.
We do.
Yeah, we're going to talk about carbon sequestration, carbon capture, carbon use, and what it means for the future of corn-based ethanol. We've got Tom Buis coming on, CEO of the American Carbon Alliance. Then we are going to talk about USDA-NASS's decision to discontinue some survey work. When I saw the announcement, I thought, okay, yeah, there are people that are not going to be happy with this. There are people that are not happy with this decision at all, Davis. And one of those groups is the American Farm Bureau Federation. They're looking for all the information that they can get on the situation out there. We're going to talk about that with Bernt Nelson coming up. And then ISU Extension Week, celebrating that. Jason Henderson will be here at the end of the show.
All right.
Sounds
all right,
great. Let's get to the news, bud.
Well, the National Weather Service is looking for severe weather and isolated flash flooding for the middle Mississippi and lower Ohio valleys and the southern plains today. Showers, thunderstorms, and cooler weather for much of the southern plains Friday. Wintry mix into the central high plains. Unseasonably warm conditions for much of the southern United States. Chillier weather expands across the northern Rockies into the plains and the upper Midwest. Chip, we had some thunder boomers as I was coming out of my evening slumber this morning, and looks like it's going to be kind of rainy and cloudy here all day. 57 degrees in Kansas City.
Yeah, we didn't have the thunderstorms here in northeast Iowa this morning, but it was raining again.
Yep.
It was raining, and boy, oh boy, this is one of the best rain events that we've had in a very long time up here in northeast Iowa.
Well, my thing is, I technically needed to mow before I left for the long weekend.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm going to do now.
How's it looking now?
Well, they frown on you baling your yard here in the city limits, so I don't know what I'm going to do.
Well, it's the equipment sound.
It's the equipment, yeah. Private exporters reported sales of 138,000 metric tons of soybean cake and meal for delivery to the Philippines during the 23-24 marketing year. A little bit of traditional demand there, Chip?
Yeah, absolutely. And, I say this quite often whenever we see meal sales into the Philippines, is that it's a hub for the distribution of the meal throughout Southeast Asia. I think that's what's going on here.
Well, get this. USDA's attaché in Argentina cut the country's corn production forecast to 51 million metric tons. That's down from 57 million metric tons projected in January due to a 4% reduction in harvested acreage and impacts from corn stunt disease. Several contacts are already estimating a potential crop of below 50 million metric tons.
Man, oh man, this disease is really something. It is knocking bushels off of that crop down there.
Well, Wall Street is contemplating whether the Federal Reserve will decrease interest rates in 2024. Despite the Fed's consistent aim of achieving a 2% inflation target, inflation rates have been consistently around 3% for several months, complicating the Fed's efforts to reach its goal. Traders, as indicated by the CME Group's FedWatch gauge, are still anticipating rate cuts later in the year, perhaps some as early as September, is what some of these folks are looking at.
I'm not certain that we're going to see any interest rate cuts this year, and I'm not certain if we can get inflation all the way down to 2% without causing a recession in the U.S. economy first.
Well, let's look at the Farm Bill, where House Ag Chair Glenn G.T. Thompson hopes to get some Democrats on board because several House Republicans are expected to oppose whatever package is developed. Mm-hmm. The Biden administration said it will not renew a license set to expire today that had broadly eased Venezuela oil sanctions, moving to reimpose punitive measures in response to President Nicolas Maduro's failure to meet his election commitments. Chip, China imported 90,000 metric tons of pork in March. Not too bad a number there. Actually down 39.3% from last year. Through the first 3 months of the year, China did import 260,000 metric tons of pork, but buddy, that's down 51.7% from the same period last year. This feels significant.
Oh, it's absolutely significant. Now, it's coming off of some inflated numbers, coming out of COVID and coming out of their problems with African swine fever or flu. Jeez.
Now I can't remember.
I'm mixing up so many ASF.
It's fever. ASF.
Fever?
There you go.
Okay. Yeah, it's ASF. We're mixing up so many different diseases now. All right. Hey, you know what? Let's go ahead and jump over to Greg Henderson, editorial director at Drovers. How you doing, buddy?
Good morning, Chip. I'm very well, thank you.
Good. Sounds like you're on the road. Where you at?
I am at the Purina Animal Nutrition Center just outside of St. Louis, and we are discussing the beef on dairy trend. And Chip, two of the biggest focuses are on the genetics and nutrition for these beef on dairy cattle. And of course, Purina's Nutrition Center is, they're doing a lot of work right on that area. We've talked before, there's like 3 million beef on dairy cattle this year that will be harvested. Now, this is not an increase in the number of cattle. It's just an increase in the genetic value of the beef on dairy cattle, which in turn gives our consumers a greater share of the quality beef movement.
Right.
But the genetics and nutrition, we've got several things to do. A feed conversion, marbling, rate of gain, red meat yield, all can be improved, Chip, if we use genetics. And here's the key. That can happen with the genetics because we're measuring it, and they call it a closed loop system. In other words, all of these calves are AI generated. We don't have that throughout the main beef industry. So it's an opportunity to really improve this product and improve those values that put money in producers' pockets.
Yeah. This whole trend, Greg, has been one of the most fascinating things that I've seen come out of the beef industry and the dairy industry in quite some time. And it is an all-out effort to put higher quality beef in the meat case coming from the dairy side. It's absolutely amazing
Absolutely.
to me. Yep.
Absolutely.
We will talk more about it in the future. Thanks, buddy.
Thank you.
The truth is hard to come by these days, unless you listen to AgriTalk.
Welcome back to AgriTalk. I'm your host, Chip Flory. Davis Michelson is here. He says it's the middle of the week, not getting into the end of the week, but he is here. I think the timing is all okay, isn't it?
Is it a little bit? It's a little bit like daylight savings. I'm on Davis savings time
Davis
right now,
savings
actually.
time.
That's what it is.
Gotcha. Well, we're glad that you are back.
Thanks, man.
Yeah. All right. Let's get into this conversation with Tom Buis, CEO of the American Carbon Alliance. And it's an interesting take that the American Carbon Alliance has got on the current situation in the grain markets, on the current situation in the development of the ethanol industry and where the industry stands and this crossroads that we seem to be at. Let's bring him in right now. Tom, it is good to talk with you again. How are you?
I'm great, Chip. How are you?
We're doing fine, man. Oh man, Tom. Let's start with your group, the American Carbon Alliance. Tell us about the organization. What's the mission, and what are you working to achieve?
Well, Chip, I had stepped down as CEO of Growth Energy back in 2016, and I was kind of semi-retired, and then I kept getting all these phone calls from friends and colleagues and people I've worked with in the past about what was happening on carbon capture and sequestration and the opportunities that exist to create demand for farm products, primarily corn and ethanol, to be used as feedstocks and higher blends and sustainable aviation fuel and whatever else comes down the road if you get a low carbon index. And I started following it, and then the more I followed it, the more concerned I got about the fact that most of the discussion was by a small vocal group of critics that everything in the world was, the sky was falling if you did this. And very little conversation about what the product at the end of the day will mean to farmers, ethanol producers, and rural America. And it's something, Chip, we haven't seen an opportunity like this since the ethanol first took off 20 years ago. Yeah. This is potential for new demand. And so we decided to create an alliance, not an organization. We don't want to compete with anyone. In fact, all the major ethanol companies, all the trade associations are partners with us and certainly are members. So we wanted to go out there and get the message out about the potential impacts and benefits of it. So Colin Peterson, longtime congressman, and I and Nick Ryan from Iowa, we put together this alliance. And our whole mission is to go out there and talk about what the benefits are. People were trying to scare the hell out of everybody about pipelines. When the fact is that in this country, we have 3 million miles of pipelines running underground, carrying a lot of different commodities. And the fact is, the criticism focused on the pipelines because they were first at bat, Chip. They were the first ones out there. And this is the biggest carbon capture project that has ever been proposed.
Right.
Goes through 5 states, and you had a couple of organizations doing it, a couple different companies, and one of them decided not to pursue it, but there's still one out there. And then every ethanol plant that exists around the country in a geological area where they can pump it straight down, it's the same thing. They want to capture the carbon. Capturing the carbon lowers our index, makes ethanol a feedstock for a low carbon fuel, which every country in the world, in the international market, all the states that are doing LCFS, everyone wants a low carbon fuel. This is our opportunity to do it, and it's a very simple process. You capture the carbon that's going up the smokestack, process it, put it in a pipeline, and deliver it to an area where they can store it forever.
Okay. All right. You mentioned the plants that can take the CO2 out the side of the plant and pump it straight down into the ground. They're kind of providing us with a model or an example of the opportunities that comes to the ethanol that's produced in those plants, where the carbon is being captured, aren't they?
Yes, they are, and that's a big chunk of the ethanol industry, because basically to get to the right geological formation, the area between Illinois and North Dakota, you can't do it. So they're going to have to figure out how to move it. And what Summit did and what Navigator proposed as well was to capture it, create, kind of like a pipeline roadway to be able to take it to areas where you can store it forever.
Right.
and then the plants out where they can just pump it straight down. It's a huge opportunity. I mean, when you're talking about demand, and you know this, farm economics is pretty simple. If you have 1 gallon, 1 bushel too much, you're going to have a cheap price on the whole crop.
Yep.
And what we're missing is a demand to keep up with the incredible productive capacity of farmers. I mean, every year the yields go up, even in a drought induced area. Last year we had a tremendous crop. So that's not going to stop.
Right.
But what has stopped, and we kind of plateaued, is on the demand side. We've got increased competition from other countries. We have lower demand, or not lower, but kind of stagnant demand for ethanol, because every new car a person buys, it gets better mileage. Every EV a person buys reduces the amount of fuel that goes in there. And so what do? We're going to have to find new demand, and just the sustainable aviation fuel market is huge. The goal is 3 billion gallons by 2030, potentially up to 50 billion gallons. And it's an existing market worldwide. Every country is looking for sustainable aviation fuel.
Yeah, and the airlines have definitely they have indicated that they definitely want the product if they can get it in quantity. The demand for the product isn't really going to be a question, is it?
No, it's not. And like I said, country after country are exacting standards that for the airlines to meet. And so either they're going to meet them, or they're going to have to reduce the number of flights. And if you look at the case of currently, sustainable aviation fuels are made out of fats and oils and that type of stuff, which is great. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of product. What ethanol brings to the table is the quantities that they would need to have a viable sustainable aviation amount, and that's huge. That's huge.
Yeah, and when you say it that way, we've been wondering what the next ethanol for the corn market is going to be. Well, the next ethanol might be ethanol again, and moving it into the sustainable aviation fuel market. But you talked about the pipeline, Tom, and it is a controversial issue. How much of the path for the pipeline has been secured through those easement agreements, and what's the answer for those areas that Summit doesn't have access?
Well, I think, and don't quote me on this, you'd have to talk to someone at Summit, but I think they're at 75% minimum in each state. And I had heard a number close to 90%, I think, up in North Dakota.
Okay.
So they're working that way. And, part of it is you have a coalition that got together that don't like fossil fuels. They don't like the internal combustion engine. And they've rallied in every state where this pipeline has been built, where they've rallied in areas where they want to pump it straight into the ground, because they know that improving the environmental impact of fossil fuels will be around longer. The internal combustion engine will be around longer. They have a mantra, it's EVs or nothing.
Right.
And, if you looked at what's practical out here, as you go forward, I think all options ought to be on the table, including the internal combustion engine, because you can make it cleaner. And that's what we do. Now, as far as those individual farmers, I can't quote you the number, but Summit has made so many route changes just to accommodate people. And I think they continue to work on that. And, we're seeing more and more people within the states and the counties where the criticism was, it's getting better as people understand what it's all about.
Okay.
I mean, like I said, there's 3 million miles of pipelines already in the ground.
Right.
It's safe. It's the safest mode of transportation. If you wanted to ship this carbon by truck or railroad,
Yep,
big
Tom,
difference.
we are out of time. Tom Buis, American Carbon Alliance. Steve Reinhard is the chair of the United Soybean Board. He joins us again here on the Soy Checkoff Check-in. Steve, welcome back. It's good to talk with you again.
Hey, good to be on with you, Chip.
Excellent. This whole month, we're focused on the nutritional value of soy in a human diet, in an animal feed ration, and the continuous efforts at the United Soybean Board to improve the nutritional value through seed technology, through production practices. It's part of the everyday DNA at USB, isn't it?
Yeah, it's something we're working with all the time, and we're in the thick of our process now to look at a lot of those investments and how we want to move through fiscal year 25 already. And just in my short lifetime that I've been running the farm, I mean, we've seen the continuous improvements in that seed technology, and we're able to increase the ability to process more soybean oil and innovating into the future, as we look to collaborate with industry partners, researchers, our academic institutions to continue to drive that growth needed for both the food demands and then for the sustainability production as well. And that's all, done with the help of the Soy Checkoff. And it's been a really good process. Our last ROI, of course, Chip, for every dollar invested in that checkoff was returning $12.34 back to the farmer.
Yeah, that's a great return and something that we need to keep in mind here. Steve, on the Soy Checkoff Check-in, we've discussed livestock and the important role of soybeans in the rations for traditional livestock. Talk to me about aquaculture. That is a fast-growing segment of the feed industry, right?
Sure. Soybeans are the preferred feed ingredient for aquaculture, and it's increasing all around the world as becoming that important source for animal protein. And of course, that helps, feed people around the world as well. And so if we talk about Asia, which currently dominates the aquaculture production today, we're also seeing significant growth in places like Africa and the Middle East, and even in Latin America. And I can share with you, Chip, we took a trip down to Latin America mission to look at where are our investments going and what are we doing? And we saw a really sophisticated in-pond raceway system. So basically they raise these tilapia in a raceway. So it's a long in-pond system that continually flows the water and collects the sediment from the fish. And that can be used as fertilizer then for other crops. So they're in a more controlled environment, and the fish will produce more rapidly. And then that is a protein source that they can use not only in country, but then it can even be exported here to the U.S. And they love our soybeans. And in fact, they like to put their logo on the fish themselves. The package that says, produced with sustainable U.S. soy. And that actually creates a higher income stream for them in the retail locations than the ones that are produced without that logo.
That's really cool. Produced with sustainable U.S. soy. That's really cool. Okay, Steve, the checkoff has the responsibility to create new uses for soybeans. The last time that you were on the Soy Checkoff Check-in, we discussed how the 6 priority area working groups determine the new investments. How else is the checkoff investing in finding that additional value for soybeans?
Sure. So we partner with a group called the Yield Lab Institute, and we have a Soy Innovation Challenge, and that's basically to derive more value from the soybean meal. And the meal plays, that key role in animal agriculture. U.S. soy's #1 customer, that animal ag sector. So innovations may increase the inclusion in animal rations. We talked about aquaculture, maybe pet foods, and even soy for human consumption. We also look at innovations that advance the commercial viability of existing uses in both the food and feed space, and overcome, some of those technical challenges and increasing that usage. And then we also look at what are the storage requirements or viability of soybean meal over time. So, we ask these ag tech startups and innovators, and, some of them are scientists and entrepreneurs, and basically to kind of create these technologies that we think we're going to need to move soybean meal into not only more into the existing markets, but also markets that we haven't even developed yet.
Right. Hey, great conversation, Steve. Thank you.
Hey, thanks, Chip. And if they want to check out more about the checkoff, unitedsoybean.org is where they can check it out on the internet.
And that is Steve Reinhard, chairman of the United Soybean Board. We'll be back with the leaders of the United Soybean Board on the next Soy Checkoff Check-in. But now let's get back to AgriTalk.
Opinions expressed on AgriTalk do not necessarily reflect the views of Farm Journal Broadcasting, affiliate stations, or sponsors. Do you suffer from talking on the radio phobia? No problem. Send us a tweet at #AgriTalk.
Welcome back to AgriTalk. I'm Chip Flory. Glad you're with us on this Thursday morning. Interesting conversation with Tom Buis from American Carbon Alliance there, and I'm sure that has created a lot of conversation out there in the countryside about exactly how or if the pipeline to carry CO2 up to North Dakota is going to continue, be finished up or not, and when's it going to happen? That's a big question that the whole industry has got. Okay, let's bring in Bernt Nelson. He is an economist at American Farm Bureau Federation, joins us right now. Bernt, it's good to talk with you. How are you?
You as well. I'm doing great. It's a beautiful day here in Washington. It's not quite as nice back on the family farm, which is in North Dakota. They are cool and windy.
Yeah, the wind has been blowing out here quite a bit. Cool, too, but man, oh man, it's sure nice to get some moisture at this time of the year.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been one of the bigger concerns as we get ready to get planters in the field. You know, we had some insurance dates that popped up. There's been a few guys, in Iowa getting ready to get in. We were April 15th showed up, and that's the wheat planting date in North Dakota. So there's people getting, everyone's itchy to get into the field.
Yeah, no doubt. Okay. USDA's National Agricultural Statistics Service, or NASS, recently announced it is no longer going to be doing the surveys for the July cattle inventory report, won't be doing the county level estimates for crops and livestock, and will not be doing objective yield survey work for the cotton yield. I want to start with the July cattle report here, Bernt. What are the risks? What are the risks to the industry if or when that report is not published?
So that July cattle inventory is probably the most glaring piece of news when they released or made the announcement. This July cattle report is absolutely essential to market transparency. And so the USDA, being an organization that, one of its major platforms is market transparency. And we only have these inventory reports twice a year. We have the January 1st inventory report, and we have the July cattle inventory report. And this is of particular importance in the cattle sector because of the nature of this overall market. We have 4 big packers that control 85% of the market share. So that report is really an important piece of market movement and the snapshots that farmers, researchers, and economists and advocates like myself use throughout the year. It's a piece that can dictate a lot of market movement, especially when we're at cattle inventory levels like we are right now. We're at a 73-year low for our cattle inventory.
Yeah.
And we're seeing a lot of market volatility in response to that.
Yep. Well, I'm sure that the people at NASS, they don't want to leave a hole, even if this is just a 1-year thing, and I don't think it is. But even if it was just a 1-year thing where they are not going to be doing the survey work for the mid-year cattle inventory, the people at NASS don't want a hole in that data set either. They would just as soon continue to do the work, but it's all about the budget. I don't know, or do you not? Do you think it might be something other than the budget?
So that's a little bit of a deeper question. And to properly look at that, we got to think about NASA's budget overall. So we had the ag census, the 2022 ag census that they did last year. That survey takes a massive amount of funding. And so their budget ask at that point was for around $240 million. Now they were appropriated $211 million, which was enough to get that report across the finish line. Now, as we go into this year, the budget is around $187 million. That's according to Troy Joshua, as one of the administrators there at NASS. And as they dialed that back, they had to make some cuts. And that's kind of where we're at with the budget constraints. So after a big year like the census year, the fact that the budget was dialed back has happened, in the past historically, and it's not an uncommon thing. But for it to be dialed back this hard to the point where they had to make these types of cuts is really a big deal. And it hurts so many individuals along the way that use this data. Whether you're a farmer, a researcher at one of our land grant institutions working in extension, they use that county level data that NASS did away with or is planning on doing away with here. And, as they do that, researchers, again, economists, farmers that use these data to make decisions on where they're going, what they're going to plant for the upcoming year. We had prospective planning reports that were out just a month ago, and all of these county level pieces of information are crucial to farmers making those decisions.
Okay, let's talk a little bit more about that, the county level production numbers on crops and on livestock. Who used it, and what alternative sources of information might be available to replace the NASS data?
So these production and yield estimates are absolutely foundational data for markets, and particularly the type of research that the agricultural world relies on. For example, if we look at ARC, agricultural risk coverage, and PLC, these programs use yield data from crop insurance programs to set historical baselines. This is a good thing. But crop insurance products themselves, the ones that farmers rely on, are built using this NASS county level yield and production information. So when you eliminate yield and production data, it severely impacts those insurance products, but it also impacts researchers. At our land grant institutions, we have our extension services that use unbiased research-based science to help deliver educational programs to the public. We have professors that rely on this information to teach classes. We have graduate students that rely on this for their programs. It significantly damages the ability of all these individuals along that pipeline to deliver that information.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Bernt, I wonder if we shouldn't be talking more to congressmen that provide the funding rather than talking to the people at NASS. Who should, if farmers want these surveys back, who's more important to talk to? Is it the people at NASS or Congress that's providing the funding for the budget?
I think we have to talk to both, I think, is the real answer. There's been such a unity amongst the industry. It doesn't matter whether you're in livestock, whether you're in cotton, or whether you're in grains. Everybody has been involved in this with sending their questions, their letters, and the things that they use this information for straight to USDA. And this is important, but we have to remember that budget oftentimes is allocated in Congress. And when we're on a year like a farm bill year like we are now, where we've been kind of in this continuing resolution phase, we have to remember that Congress is a part of this too. And so we need to be making those phone calls and writing these letters to our senators, to our Congress people, in order to help fix this problem. It starts at the top, and we have to start there. But it's also important, we had Senator Moran ask this question during a hearing the other day, where he asked, what Senator or Secretary Vilsack, what he was going to do about this. And his answer pointed the finger largely at Congress. But the reality is we all have to unite in this and work together to come to that solution.
Gotcha. Okay. Yep. Excellent. Fair. Very fair there. You mentioned the farm bill. Holy smokes, Bernt, the delay in this thing has got to be it's driving everybody crazy. We need to see some progress on this. And We talk about risk to agriculture. Look at the drop that is expected in net farm income in the year ahead. We've got some real work to do on the safety net provisions in that farm bill, don't we?
Yeah, it's really a big deal. And like you said, we've had commodity prices that are dropping lower. We have risks to the cattle sector. We have hog profitability that's, dropped so low. And these crop insurance products, that are contained in the farm bill are just absolutely crucial to this. So the bottom line on this thing is we have to get it done. And, we're getting ready for a markup at the end of May. There's just some discussion about some of the things that are in there. So we're very hopeful that some of these things are moving forward and that we're going to be able to get this thing done within the summer.
Yeah. Well, that would be a big plus. Big plus. When you take a look at some of the things that are affecting revenue potential out there in farm country, where does H5N1 and its move from birds to bovine fit into everything, Bernt? Because it is it's kind of a scary situation, isn't it?
It's really a unique situation I think is the best way to put it. This came up 2.5, I think 3 weeks is about where we're at with this when this thing started popping up. We now have dairy herds testing positive for avian influenza, 26 herds in 8 different states. This is a dynamic situation. It changes on a day-to-day basis, sometimes an hour to hour, and APHIS might say minute to minute at times. We saw some transmission from, dairy herd to dairy herd. Now, the way this is going is it's not expected to where this is actually a transmission from cow to cow, but more likely that it's looking to be something mechanical. And so that's likely what we're looking at spreading. Now, in the last week, the meetings that I've been on, there haven't been any new positive tests in Texas. So that's one of the good things. That's showing that this might be following some of the migratory patterns and that it might be slowing down a little bit. Now, it's definitely too soon to tell where we're at with that. And avian influenza is affecting more than just, our bovine situation. That might be the strange one, but it's not the only one. Now, in the last 30 days, we're up to 8.5 million birds affected, most of them being egg layers and our turkey flocks. We had just a year ago, this drove egg prices up to, $10 a dozen. So something we're still keeping an eye on.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Bernt. That is Bernt Nelson, economist, American Farm Bureau Federation.
Knowledge is power. We're here to charge your batteries. AgriTalk.
Welcome back to AgriTalk. I'm Chip. ISU Extension and Outreach Week is April 15th through the 20th, and we are happy to help Extension celebrate what they do and to get the word out on ISU Extension. Joining us, Jason Henderson, Vice President of Iowa State University Extension. Jason, welcome to AgriTalk. How are you?
Have a little bit of rain across the state of Iowa.
Yeah, absolutely. We do have some rain across the state of Iowa. A little bit of connection problem there, I think, Jason, but let's try to push forward here. It's good to talk with you again. Okay. I think the last time that I saw you was at the Iowa State Fair last summer for the 4-H Hall of Fame inductions. My parents were in the 2023 class there, Jason.
Oh, great, and congratulations to them.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, it was really cool. So it's ISU Extension and Outreach Week. What do you want people to know about Iowa State Extension?
We've been here for over 100 years. We've been working to make lives better for our farmers and our families and our communities, doing different things such as being catalysts for change by bringing new technology out to agriculture, helping people adopt those practical applications that come from our research here at the university and our colleagues from across the country to work to make their lives better. And so we're just really excited to celebrate our history and what we've been doing for 100 years, but what we look to do going forward.
Yeah. One of those things that you've been doing for those 100 years is the 4-H program in the state, and 4-H is just one of the many ways that ISU Extension touches communities, counties, individuals across the state, and it's a very important connect point for Iowa State. Talk about that.
Yeah, so we reach about 130,000 youth across the state of Iowa each and every year, from our club programs that we do to our STEM workshops and other types of activities that we have, teaching them the basics of science and technology, and getting them ready for life, getting them ready for school, getting them ready for jobs. But I think most importantly, getting them ready to be leaders in our communities. And so we're really proud of our 4-Hers and what they do to just make life better in many different ways.
Yeah, what is the condition of 4-H in the state of Iowa? Is it as strong as it always has been, or are there some areas that have weakened?
Yeah, I think the 4-H program is strong. The world around us, the environment that we're working with, we're having to work through some different things. There's been a lot of youth struggling with mental health and resilience, and we've had to focus on that, of how we can work with our youth. We think it's doing experiential learning programs, having our strong volunteer base that we have working with youth, doing different projects, giving them a sense of accomplishment, and learning those technical and professional communication and just life skills that they need to have going forward.
Yeah.
And all of those things of improving their confidence in themselves and what their future holds.
Yeah, excellent. Okay. So how else does ISU Extension help Iowans? There's farmers listening that are very familiar with the educational programs and opportunities that come through ISU Extension. But to those that have not tapped into ISU Extension for information, what are they missing out on? What do you want them to know?
I want them to know that Iowa State Extension is a place where they can learn new technologies and new practical applications that can help them boost their profit margins and at the same time strengthen the environment and the farms and the environmental health and the soil health of where they live. Ranging from, what's the best way to optimize the pesticide type of applications to figuring out from our planter universities how to optimize the settings that allow you to plant with more precision at faster speeds using older equipment that are able for you to do your job as a farmer to help you improve profitability, but also the conservation and stewardship of your land.
Yeah. It is a industry that changes on a regular basis. You grew up in Northeast Iowa, didn't you?
I did. I grew up on a dairy farm in Northeast Iowa.
Fantastic. Well, you look at the changes that have happened to the dairy industry in the state of Iowa and agriculture over the last 30, 35 years. It's been a remarkable change, and part of the effort for ISU Extension is keeping up with private industry and everything that's changing out there, isn't it?
It is. I think, just looking at the dairy industry, there's a lot of changes that have happened. I grew up on a small dairy of 50 head, and those type of size dairies have shrunk over the last few years, but there's a few of them that have really, to be in existence, have been thinking about how to add value, how to do on-farm type of products and sales and value-added activities of doing different things from confectionaries to other types of products. And so I think that's an expansion from commodities to also value-added production coming off the farm. Yeah.
Very good. Well, I tell you, Jason, Iowa State is lucky to have you, and keep up the good work there with Iowa State University Extension. It is something that everyone in the state is very proud of. So thank you very much, sir.
Well, thank you very much, and you have a great day.
All right. Hey, real quick, is there any celebrations at the county offices planned?
Yes, there is. Across the county offices, the celebrations for Extension Week is I Spy Sci activities going around in various different places. And so as we celebrate that of getting your picture taken with I Spy Sci.
I Spy Sci. Excellent. Jason, thank you so much. I appreciate you, man. We'll talk to you later. That is Jason Henderson, Vice President for Iowa State University Extension there in Ames, Iowa. All right. Thank you so much for listening this morning. Appreciate it. Come back this afternoon. We're talking everything that's happening in the protein markets. Don Close, Terrain Ag, is going to be our guest right here on AgriTalk and Free For All tomorrow morning, 10:06 Central.